course, we are so incredibly grateful for all of our amazing sponsors. And so our next platinum sponsor that is going to come up here and give you a little 5-minute pitch is AppDynamics. And we have Mr. Warren Burt. Where are you? There he is. So let's give a hand to AppDynamics and thank them for our platinum sponsorship. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Oh, wait. Do I need a clicker? Yeah, there it is. Cool. So, yeah, my name is Warren. I'm with AppDynamics. Oh, I think we're on Dell EMC here. Oh, no. There we go. Perfect. Cool. So let's do something real quick. Can everybody do me a favor and point north? Just real quick. Just stick your arm up in the air. Point north. Okay. I'm seeing this way, this way, this way. Okay. Well, for the record, north is this way. So the point of that exercise, trying to point north when you don't know where you're at, is kind of like trying to monitor a custom application environment without a tool like AppDynamics. So very briefly today, I want to just give you a quick overview of AppD. We're right outside the door here, so if you're interested, we'd love to show you a demo or answer any questions that you might have. So before we talk about monitoring with AppD in a DevOps culture, it's important just to touch briefly on traditional monitoring. So the traditional approach to monitoring, this probably looks familiar to you guys. You have an application that's supported by some type of infrastructure, and then you have a number of different teams that all roll up to one goal, and that's end user experience. So whether that's customers, whether that's internal users, end user experience is what we care about. So with traditional monitoring, we can see that an end user is having a negative experience, but how do we go about figuring out what's causing that? So a lot of teams would go through digging through log files or huddling in a war room. It takes a long time. It's a pretty inconsistent process, and let's be honest, it's kind of a pain in the ass. So if you take that a little step further, what we really want to be able to do is monitor the yellow, right? So be a little bit more proactive in nature, being able to understand if there are dangerous trends, what could be causing those. So what's really required through all of this is end-to-end context, being able to see across an application environment to all the individual components and understand if an end user is having a negative experience, what's causing that. The real result, though, of traditional monitoring, a little bit of Jon Snow, no, nothing. Game of Thrones, man. So has anybody ever been in a war room scenario before? Raise your hand. So when we talk about a war room, it's the same everywhere. We all huddle in a conference room or hop on a conference bridge, and we take turns pointing fingers. And the real exercise here is how long does it take for me to prove that something isn't my fault? It's mean time to innocence. What we have to think about, though, there's more than just that. There's a potential impact of 3 things. So brand loyalty. If these are customer-facing apps, your brand reputation is at stake. There's also revenue at stake. If these are any revenue-critical applications, what's the dollar amount associated with an outage? But then potentially the most important of these is the cost of the people and the infrastructure. You guys are hired on because you're the best, and if you're spending your time in troubleshooting scenarios instead of innovating, there's a waste there. There's a cost there. So the last implication we talk about here on this little flow chart, you'll notice the first thing on here is a customer is complaining. So we're waiting for customers to tell us that something is happening, or end users to tell us that something is happening. And you're exposed there. There's a risk there. Because what happens if a customer doesn't complain and they just go to the competitor? So let's just assume that we do get that ticket or that tweet, whatever it might be. That can kind of trigger the domino effect, and we can go about logging a ticket, isolating, repairing the issue. For a lot of our customers, they've had ongoing P1s for weeks or even months if they can replicate the issue. So that's a challenge. So let's just talk, I've got a minute and a half, let's talk about AppDynamics. So whenever you instrument an application with AppDynamics, 3 things happen. We start to tag every transaction moving through that application architecture, and we trace it as it touches each of the components in your application. From there, we're able to learn what normal behavior is for that application. What's really specific and special about that is that it allows us to only alert you whenever something's actually going wrong. Has anybody ever seen those alert storms? You get a bunch of crap in your email inbox, and none of it is stuff that you need to pay attention to. With AppDynamics, it's specific to your environment. So we talked about this slide just a second ago. Without AppDynamics, the customer's complaining for one, and then you have that whole process. Well, what if it's not the customer complaining to tell us that something is going on? What if it's a proactive alert based on an actual threshold for your specific environment? There's value there. Secondly, what if instead of going into a war room, we have the AppDynamics guy that says, hey, Mr. Database, there's a long-running query there. You should go check it out. We can very specifically identify and isolate the issue through collaboration. And then from there, if you want to take it even a step further, leveraging our runbook automation, you can trigger an automatic response to a specific event. So huge value there. Kraft, my favorite story, they saved Thanksgiving. The day before Thanksgiving, their recipe website went down, but thanks to AppDynamics, they could pinpoint specifically what the issue was and go and fix it so that you still get your turkey and dressing. So the last thing I'll share with you is 4 things that I want you to know about AppD. So 1, it's a unified platform. Everything happens under one UI, so no multiple logins or anything like that. It's a web-based UI, so it's very easy to increase adoption in your organization. Secondly, it's meant for production, so very low overhead, meant for complex enterprise application environments. And then the last 2 are kind of tied together, so auto-discovering and mapping. If you've ever built a Visio diagram, this is what you want to hear. AppDynamics builds out a flow map of your application environment automatically. And then the last one is self-learning and baselining. So rather than going in and setting manual thresholds, AppDynamics is going to learn what behavior for your environment should be and only alert you whenever something starts to deviate from that. So appreciate your time. Please stop by our booth. We're giving away an Amazon Echo Dot, so make sure and sign up for that, and we'd love to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thanks, Warren. All right, our next platinum sponsor